Welcome to Tech Talk Live. It's Tuesday, October 21st, 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I'm Jack Armstrong.
In 9 p.m. in the DMV, I'm Sam Giacinto, and you're listening to Tech Talk Live. Welcome to the show. As always, feel free to chat or call in with any tech news. And once again, lots to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, huge outage this week, I think, with AWS. Really, I can't believe we're talking about this. It's because it sounds so crazy, but so much of the internet was disrupted yesterday. I think we can't ignore what happened.
Yeah, so you may have personally noticed this. I guess I'm not maybe as chronically online. I didn't personally have any services affected, but it sort of showcases beyond, you know, the technicals of why it happened, sort of the dependency on a single point of failure in any system, much less, one that, runs more or less half the internet these days. I don't know, I'll have to get an updated statistic. I've seen 40% of the internet. I don't know how much, you know, share AWS has of the modern internet. But it kind of, um, guess it's 30% now.
It's wild. I mean, either
Sure.
way, it's just so much. We don't realize it.
But yeah, it goes to show that, if you don't have redundancy in systems and people, how things can kind of break down and how fragile, the modern internet really is. Um, Despite, it's kind of a bunch of, microservices um talking to each other essentially. Um and if you put all your eggs in this one basket, it's the sort of risk, the risk is still there. And we're kind of at the point where there aren't many viable alternatives to, you know, AWS, um, in terms of capacity and just overall, as we've talked about before, right? There's a very large network effect, um, that occurs when you have something that is, so big and so widely used. It becomes useful to know how to use it, and then you use it more and more and more. And I think it really, goes to show it's like, if it's the only game in town, it's, there's no, the cloud as a concept is really just a system hosted by somebody else. So you're outsourcing that, but it's not a silver bullet of redundancy. Um,
Well,
you know,
companies are gonna need, like, backup. I mean, that was what it blows me away is, like, if you're a retail online retail outlet, right? You're losing sales if your systems are offline. So it's not only costing you money, and then, I mean, you've got services like Venmo that were down, or Delta or United Airlines that were having issues. You had services like Peloton and Snapchat. So you have a lot of streaming services, social medias that, yeah, rely on these systems, and it's like it's just crazy that they didn't have, like, a second, like, provider that could have filled in the gap. So I think there's a huge opportunity here, to make the internet safer and more reliable. And it's pretty reliable, but it also shows, like you said, 40% of the internet runs on AWS. So, like, that's
30%. So I have to
30.
update that.
But still, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, it feels like it's so many sites. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 60%. I mean, how do you really know? I mean, also, you might use 20% of the sites you use, but someone else might use, 90% of what they use. If you're using Snapchat as a primary method of communication, and you get what I'm saying, right? Like there are a lot of companies that rely on AWS, and if they have an outage like that frequently, like I just think that's crazy.
Well, and silver lining to all of this, it sort of highlights that there are self-hosted alternatives. I mean, you can I mean, I hate to admit, but it was the impetus to, dust off my NAS, which has been offline for a while, and, take a look at, it's like, hey, I have all this storage and stuff that's sitting that I don't particularly use. I mean, there are options to do it yourself. It, doesn't have to be complicated. There are kind of ways to make it more approachable. So just, explore it and see what you find, and maybe there's something that will work for
Yeah,
you. I mean, it's, consider alternatives, I think is the big takeaway from all of this. Um, because at a certain point, in order for there to be real change, someone has to facilitate it. So if you're able to, you know, explore differences, explore different options. I mean, the internet's dominated by big cloud, I hate to say it, right? But you have Amazon, and Microsoft and Google still have a sizable amount. Um, so it, essentially, you know, it's a little scary to think about how the modern world depends on, I mean, more or less one or two different services. But it will remain that way until we sort of see, this is a big flaw in having something standardized.
yeah,
Um, you know, it's not much has to fail the for some people, their whole internet to be affected. Um, so just kind of a stop and check, don't keep all of your eggs in one basket. Um,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a wake up call for a lot of companies to explore backup options. And I mean, it's embarrassing too when you've got, I mean, I guess so much of the internet's affected. So it's kind of like, oh, well, hey, if you were trying to use our app yesterday and you couldn't, but there's so much like there. Like, I think, like, when you open, yeah, an app, let's say it's not working yesterday. I mean, I think there was so much like that was affected. It blows me away. Anyway, the more you think about it, these companies really need to start exploring alternatives. And we've seen other companies that are doing things on the blockchain, and we talk about this a lot, right? And what's a advantage of doing that? Well, more resilience, right? You've got a more distributed cloud. That way, if one thing goes off. So specifically, it was a DNS issue. So dynamic name service issue on one of their servers, one of their data centers in Virginia, I believe. Sam, is this correct? What technical breakdown of what
uh,
actually
sure.
caused?
So I guess, again, not to quote everything, but yeah, it's always DNS, right? So DNS described as the phone book of the internet, right? You look up where a service exists. And I guess the specific issue is with DynamoDB, which is, essentially used for a lot of, login services for, sort of your end use applications like your Peloton or, sort of identity component. And, essentially there was an entry in that massive phone book that was unable to be resolved or point to a valid service. So I don't know if it was an entry that went bad, but essentially it was a single point of failure where the we're no longer able to talk to Dynamo. Like Dynamo's offline. Like, what do we do? And for a lot of apps, you know, what you should do is, well, let's try a different Dynamo, DB somewhere. But
Yeah.
for a lot of them, US East is unique in that it is one of the foundational AWS regions. They have regions all over the world, but US East 1 is specifically, sort of where a lot of the services were originally based. So it's kind of sticky in the fact where, you know, that's the origin point, right? So if you're creating redundancy, you are, you're essentially having to migrate off of a singular dependence on US East. And that's kind of what made um this such a critical issue. Um, simply because it was in that region, but it was also the entire region. So Amazon has availability zones within a region to break down, oh, like if you host across multiple availability zones or physical locations, you can avoid some of these. But, ideally you should have, multiple regions. But that also means multiple cloud bills and multiple, it increases the complexity. So that's kind of what made this so stark. Um, is because kind of implementing, multi-region redundancy is just it's costly and complex. So basically, a lot of these, you know, and that's kind of really the risk reward analysis you have to make. I mean, this isn't, I think part of the reason it's getting so much attention is because it's not very often that this happens. So you have to really ask yourself, is it worth paying twice the money every month for an event that will happen once every year or once every 2 years? So everything's a calculation between, you can make something perfectly reliable, but the cost of doing that exceeds the money you would lose by it not being perfectly reliable, if that makes sense. You need to find the sweet spot, right? Where, okay, we made it pretty reliable and it's a good balance of implementing the reliability versus the cost we would lose if we went offline. So, you know,
Hmm.
it was kind of compounded by the fact too that it's US East 1, which is, that's kind of the birthplace for a lot of AWS services. That's where, they come online. It's like we have a new service. It's called yada yada. Okay. I mean, it's, you know, and not to keep adding on to it, but the fact that
For
there
sure.
were a lot of caching, so once you receive a record, you don't immediately throw it in the trash. Um, you'll store it locally on your computer or your app or your infrastructure because you're not going to call it every time. So that's kind of why we saw this cascading effect, right? It's like you're pouring water into a cup and then you switch to wine. It's going to take a while before the cups down the path get the wine because at a certain point, so that kind of added to it. um
For sure.
but it's just screw up all around. I mean, but it's very I think it just highlights how fragile it all is despite uh you know like here
Yeah,
we are,
absolutely. Yeah.
right?
No, we shouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, there should be safeguards in place that eliminate this. So, or also disperse. I mean, you mentioned this one particular data center, and it's amazing that it wasn't. distributed in other regions as well. That way, again, there's a backup. Yeah, and also Amazon, like, I mean, they should think about this and how many tools rely on their, servers so that this doesn't happen. Now, I think, are we going to go decades with nothing happening? No, but and it was resolved within what, 10 hours? I don't know if we have like actual numbers. I mean, obviously there were trickling fallouts and different services, took different times to recover. Also, the development team for the services that went down might have screwed up some of the back end stuff because AWS was off. So it might have taken longer because of that. But yeah, no, I think just overall, like having something like this happen, obviously not something they want to happen, not something we expect to happen often, but amazing that they're not a little more prepared, like with a backup solution or having the database backed up in two places. Like, yeah, it does mean more bills, but like, why can't, what I don't understand is why can't other cloud providers take that opportunity, or even in the blockchain Web3 space? Like, that would be a great opportunity for them to say, "Hey, look, we know you don't want to switch from AWS, but look, integrate with our system kind of on a backup plan. That way you're not paying like a ton, but you still have access when needed." It's kind of like power plants, right? I mean, power plants don't they switch from different energy sources depending on what's available and how much demand is there. It's kind of like yeah, we're going to draw from the backup batteries. Oh, now we're going to draw from solar. We're going to draw from wind. We're going to draw from coal. We're going to, whatever, they pick different based on what's best. So I think servers are going to have to switch to something like that into the future because you can't have this happening like even again. Like that would be really bad. So will be interesting to see.
Well, and I mean, yeah, just I mean to respond and say, what yeah, why doesn't everybody do this? Um, you know, we have to kind of wind the clocks back to, you know,
Mhm.
basically, US East 1 was the first uh, that's where AWS started, right? So, sometime in the mid 2000s, I think 2006 was when US East 1 came online, and that was AWS. There was no other area, there was no other region. Essentially, um, you know, the first redundant region in the US was apparently around 2009, and that didn't even have the same level of functionality as US East 1. In 2011, they actually had their first real, like, full feature redundant region. So that's 5 years of just really just innovation on a single path.
Yeah.
So, you know, the features just weren't really there, So and a lot of this other stuff too, because when we're talking about something that's so complex, it takes a while to implement the features across, it's not just you don't just flip a switch, um, to migrate 10 years of legacy software. AWS has the same issue that's really plagued humanity of just like how do you transfer information and features and functionality of software effectively? I mean, nobody's, it's a mess. I mean, for the same reason that humanity is a little messy. So, it's still an uphill battle. And, Web3 is great, but it just simply doesn't have the scale um to match,
Yeah.
sometimes you need a lot of compute. I mean, it's just sort of like at a
And
certain point.
you're right. There's nowhere to meet that demand yet. Like, could it come? Yeah, but like that also has to be decentralized and built out by smaller parties around the globe. Like it's not an easy solution to yeah, just say, oh well, switch to this serverless, whatever solution. Because I don't know if we've talked about it before, but and I'm not, a back end person like this, but I had always thought in my little research that I had been doing. Had we talked about Flux on cloud computing? Do you remember this platform? So yeah, this was we could share our screens actually for this if you want to bring it up. But this was again again, still new, still building it out. Again, not saying this is going to be the most perfect example, but just saying that there are alternatives. And again, I'm not an expert. I've heard this on other podcasts. I've heard this on a lot of Web3 and deep in YouTube channels. But if you look at cloud compute with four vCPUs, the Flux Cloud would be $4.07, whereas AWS for that amount of compute would be $135. So like it again, I am no expert here. I don't deploy this stuff on the back end, but it just like you can't, if this is true, you can't beat these rates. So like there are other alternatives. I mean, think about it. If you're running a company that uses this type of compute and you have, 8 vCPU, you can really go back down to their ecosystem, by the way. And if you do Flux Cloud, and then you scroll down to the little calculator, you can just see the different rates. I mean, I don't know why they would be lying about this. I don't know why they would be, inflating prices of AWS and Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud. I just think AWS and Google Cloud and Azure are not the only solutions. What are your thoughts on like this as maybe a potential solution to having decentralized cloud infrastructure, like, maybe as a backup? That way we don't have, maybe companies can start looking into solutions like this.
Well, so number one, I think you brought up a great point about pricing, right? So I think one of the biggest convenient lies about quote unquote the cloud is that, oh, we're going to save money, okay, because we're moving to the cloud. And that really it's just sort of saying like you can use a hammer to dig a hole. Like you can, but you should probably be using the proper tool to do it. I mean, you can, host everything in the cloud cheaply, but you should also be using and aware of the right tools. It's not just a catch-all of like, we're moving to the cloud to save money. You can, but it's certainly not, you know, it's not a silver bullet. And so I think the point on pricing, you're absolutely right in that, like, I think a lot of companies do offer specific services cheaper than AWS. It's not it may be the Walmart in terms of size, but it's not the Walmart in terms of pricing reputation.
Yeah.
And far as, for the competitors, I think, like I'm looking at Flux right now. And like they have a good amount, they have 5.1 petabytes of available storage, right? Um, just as an example. And what's kind of funny about that is that, well, AWS has, essentially an 18-wheeler truck that can upload that much. They discontinued it, but the snowmobile,
Hmm.
for petabyte scale uploads. So it's like, AWS had a truck that could upload the entire capacity of this company. So it's like the scale is really the only issue with, and the other fact too is like learning and knowing how to use it, right?
Yeah.
Aside from
Well,
technical, you need people to run your apps. Like it's not all just a computer controlled infrastructure, like, you need somebody who knows how to use this technology.
Yeah.
And if it's not used, then no one's gonna learn it, and if no one learns it, no one's gonna use it. So we
Yeah.
kind of go back to, like, the chicken and the egg in that way, if that makes sense, right? Like, people need to know how to use it in order for it to become popular, and then people are gonna want to learn how to use it.
And then the price might change at that point.
And that's
Yeah.
true, and then, I mean, we've talked about this with other stuff. I know, was it Festival Pass and Devour in the past, where it's like, the only thing you basically just wait to see if it's sustainable or not. Because if it's
Yeah.
not, then long term you can't keep up with, um, it's if it's not sustainable on a small scale, then once it scales to be huge, it will be, you know,
Yeah.
even less sustainable. Just it'll be more apparent, I guess.
Well,
Uh,
one of the things that I think is interesting too is trust, and this is something that comes up again and again with new companies, right? You always see this. I don't want to call it the trust cycle, but you almost have like this trust barrier in the beginning with these new platforms that are doing something different, where it's like they if enough people start trusting them and signing up, right? Whether it's one of these cloud computes or like Festival Pass or something, right? It's like people are used to, yeah, buying tickets from Ticketmaster, buying tickets from SeatGeek, buying tickets from other marketplaces. What's stopping them from this type of model? What is stopping companies from deploying onto cloud infrastructure that's decentralized? So, and also this is the other thing that I find interesting is recognizing why the cost is advantageous. For example, there's a lot of underutilized resources out there, and decentralized cloud platforms are tapping into this distributed network of cloud resources from whether they're individuals, whether they're small businesses, and they're allowing their hardware to go unwasted. And so I think, again, as the internet grows and internet speeds get faster and this and that, and also fees, I think there's a lot of hidden fees for a lot of platforms like AWS. I think there's a lot, right? And so I feel like we just don't know right now how, the future, like, yeah, you're right. Like, are these platforms going to be successful? I mean, look, I feel like they can, but enough companies, yeah, have to switch or be open to the idea of it. I mean, look, there's a lot of, I mean, I know it's about technology, but the economy and saving money and lowering costs are always important to businesses too, because they obviously, whether it's margins or whatever. Anyway, I think this might be a way for them to save, right? So anyway, I feel like there are alternatives out there that right now are just unproven, untrusted. And, hopefully into the future, if more situations like this happen with a huge outage, again, maybe AWS. We also had Cloudflare like a couple years ago. Cloudflare has been in the past. We've also had CrowdStrike. Uh, we've seen this before, right? We've seen this happen where, yeah. So anyway, I feel like there's just a lot to change in the public, not only the public, but the public also needs to wake up, whether it's their favorite social media platforms down or they can't Venmo their friends. These are tools that should really always be online. And the fact that they don't have a backup when something goes wrong is kind of amazing.
well, and I mean, honestly, if anything, it really just goes to show, the fact that so much was affected just shows you how popular it really is. And at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you're not going to like switching off of AWS. It's very sticky. Okay. It's like they're not This is a multi-year affair of like, likely behavior will not change. Um,
Yeah.
I think it gets a lot of news coverage, right? Like you mentioned Cloudflare, like they're a huge content delivery network. Um, but the thing is, it's like I again, like this gets a lot of publicity, and I hate to be the pessimist, but it's just sort of like every news story gets a lot of publicity, and the next week there's something else. I mean, something else, especially in the tech world, you know, it dominates the headline for maybe 5 minutes. Everybody goes back to paying their AWS bill at the end of the month. I mean, it's just sort of like there's a lot of manufactured outrage with it, but I don't think AWS is going anywhere.
No, I
Um,
don't think they're going anywhere, but, like, there needs to be better integration in the future with whether it's decentralized platforms, just alternatives. That way there's a backup when something happens and you don't have shit going down for this long, you know? Like, that's
well,
crazy. What really happened? Like, it's really disruptive, and I mean, what? Like, even Canvas for students was down. I mean, people can't do their homework, and I mean, yeah, we rely on the cloud, but why does it have to be AWS as the only like, yeah, there's gotta be a backup. There's gotta be an alternative, you know?
I mean, yeah, but it's all risk reward, right? This happens once every 2 to 5 years, depending on how you want to look at it.
Mhm.
Oh, it goes down for a day. I mean, it's just sort of like, is that worth, even if you are Amazon, it's just sort of like, I mean, what else are you gonna do? It's sort of like,
Yeah, yeah.
again, pay 2 or 3 bills every month for 5 years to prepare for the 8-hour period where, I mean, it's just like, again, there's a certain point where it's like you can have all the redundancy in the world and it will cost you an infinite amount of money. But you do have to ask, like, this is
Is it
most of the way there, right? So it's like it was very
well, you
frustrating,
yeah.
but
Well, you had also brought up something that was interesting, and it was self-hosting, or why can't companies, with offices or yeah, I mean, have some sort of backup? Like, they might not have the power all the time, and the capacity all the time, but could they, given, an outage, pick up some of the slack, right? So, I mean, yeah, nobody really knows, right? We don't see this happening. So, or at
well,
least
and
we know about
no,
it.
that's a good point. And we were talking about price, right? A big component of people are realizing that self-hosting isn't the boogeyman
Yeah.
on pricing that traditionally it's like, honestly, maybe it doesn't cost a ton of money to buy our own hardware, depending on what you're doing. But
Mhm.
I mean, I think people were kind of caught up, in the cloud is the next big thing, right? That we sort of forgot the fundamentals. I mean, it's all, businesses really at the end of the day, if you abstract it out, it's a big math equation. So it's sort of like, and IT is the same way. I mean, technology, all, Peloton, Instagram, Snapchat, I mean, they're all just giant formulas that exist to make money. So it's like, what, if we can host it on our own network and not pay AWS $50 and do it ourselves for 30, with a $15 risk. I mean, so
Well, yeah,
I
you're
think,
right. What's the difference there? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is it worth having the backup, or is the loss going to be greater? Maybe they should. Maybe if they, well, when something like this happens, I mean, that's what we should be talking about is the loss of you know what they didn't sell. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't
I
know.
mean, that's ultimately what I mean, that's how you factor in your risks, your risk equation, right? It's like, it happens once every 5 years, we'll lose $5 million. So our annualized risk, you know, the cost annually will be $1 million. So it's like, but we would spend $2 million a year implementing a disaster recovery plan. So we're just going to accept the risk because it costs less to accept it than it does to mitigate it. So that's kind of that's kind of the essence of, um, the formula, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully, yeah, they get their stuff together. I don't know what to say. Yeah. Well, anyway, any other final thoughts about this AWS outage? I think we've covered a lot. What happened? When did it happen? Who was affected? What companies and what people can demand to hopefully prevent outages like this that cause a lot of damage in the future.
well, honestly, as a final thought, I'm just glad it reopens the discussion. I feel like this happens once every 2, 3 years. AWS goes down, and then people start talking about, is this a good idea to have a third of the internet running on one service? And like, no, probably isn't. At least it keeps it relevant. So
That's true.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, I don't think anybody. I don't think anyone died because Snapchat was down. Okay. I mean, I really hope that as far as life and limb things were not affected, obviously. But I think, if it got people to go outside, and stop using Snapchat, DoorDash for like 2 minutes, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm fine
that's
with that.
true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. What a crazy time we live in. So, yeah, well, also, speaking of tech and AI, I don't know how, I can't really speak to it, but I saw an interesting, I don't think we can't call it a tool, can we? I don't think, but I saw an interesting thing this week that is an AI model powering visual intelligence. So it's 12labs.io. They claim to be the world's most powerful video intelligence platform. So again, they're a platform here where we basically they analyze whether it's social media videos, YouTube videos, home videos, ring doorbells, whatever. So you can search and understand. So we've seen companies utilizing this. We've seen Google Home adding searching to your video history. We've seen Ring, I think, had this for a while. They're all doing it now. So I don't want to say this is good or bad. I think it's probably getting lighter weight. They're probably able to now parse through screen grabs at a higher capacity. But one thing that strikes me is, AI policing, which, by the way, Florida just implemented their little AI police car that goes around, scans its surroundings, uses AI models to flag suspicious behavior. So again, it's not only to potentially edit content and find the best clips and the best, what's happening in the clips. But yeah, I don't know what to say about 12 Labs product, but
Well, so yeah, to kind of just summarize, and I chuckled when you introduced it because the banner on their website essentially announces that they are available in Amazon Bedrock, which is their AI sandbox on AWS. So
yeah,
very funny. You can't get away from it. But yeah, as you said, their aim is to bring human-like understanding to video data. You can search, for specific moments in the video. You can prompt it to, analyze your videos, or you can, embed it, I guess, in your applications as well. So essentially, when we think about I think a great example is like a highlight reel in sports, right? Like you need to find, all the times that a big catch is made, so it's like I'm going to say, for an NFL highlight, for example, receiver catches deep ball for touchdown is like a natural sort of language prompt you can use. And given the full video, it will find and select timeframes for it. So kind of a use case, for media and entertainment. And as you said, quite, maybe a little bit more scarily, it's just sort of like, going to the government and security aspect, surveillance video and just sort of saying, find people wearing a backpack.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, okay, I think we can kind of figure out where this is going. So
Yeah. And
it
it's only
is,
getting easier, cheaper. So it's like it's cool, but it can also be used like we're talking in so many crazy ways.
yeah, I mean, it boils down to, AI in general. Um,
Yeah.
with great power comes great responsibility. Um, and honestly, in just a general fashion, I think I actually just got this book the other day.
Nice.
Um, highly recommend. If anyone builds it, everyone dies. So not to be alarmist,
Yeah.
but we do need to explore the risks of using, a super intelligent system
Yeah.
because I don't think it's going to keep making hamburgers for us when it figures out what it's being asked to do. You
Yeah.
know, um, but
Maybe.
you know, I mean, I think it may need us for a while, right? To build the chips, but
But
I don't
you're
know.
right. Robots are getting more capable than ever, and it should be a wake-up call. Let us know when you finish the book if it's good. That is very fascinating. Yeah, come up, give a revisited take on the book, like a little mini review maybe. But yeah, it is quite interesting the time we're living in.
And something too, while we're on the topic, I found this the other day, and it's somewhat related. But there is an organization called Blue Dot Impact, and they're essentially a sort of AGI safety advocacy group. In fact, let me just, well, what are they about? You know, basically, yeah, they're about safely navigating artificial general intelligence, which is a real risk that we face, maybe sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah.
Um, as we've said, the field of AI is moving so fast that, even journals, right? It's hard to keep up. And they have a free AGI strategy course to sort of
Oh
say,
wow.
hey, like, let's get ready for what's going to happen. So it's free to apply. It's for researchers, leaders, entrepreneurs, or operators, and it's
Mhm.
just sort of, more or less, taking action for, AGI is coming. So, how do we prepare for it? What do we do? Um,
We definitely need to create awareness. I mean, so that's good that they seem to be trying to do that because, yeah, wow.
so, essentially it's just, getting let's get us ready for, you know, get ready for what is going to be happening. Okay. I mean, it's so essentially, you know, created I mean, again, like I'm completely unaware of how this will be, but I'm very excited to try it out. I'll be doing the October 27th course, so
Very cool.
or week long course. Give it a shot. I mean, it's free education for a very supposedly crucial issue.
Oh,
Um,
this is yeah, critical. I mean, more people need to educate themselves on this, or you will get. I mean, like, not every job's going to get replaced, but we already see. Like, I had a friend. Oh my gosh, she just checked out the Tesla diner, which apparently now they have a robot there full time, uh, doing things. So I mean, they've had that, but again, like, we're just gonna see it do more and more until, you know, it is everywhere, you know? So, and we see, robo taxis in LA and San Francisco and now in DC, lots of other cities. I wouldn't want to be an Uber driver or a Lyft driver now either. I mean, I'd be worried. I mean, so I think, and they're price competitive, and then it's just it create this artificial general intelligence does seem to be more dangerous than we may think. So I think it's great that you're checking out this initiative and yeah,
and that's that.
seeing
I
how it
mean,
goes.
it's free education. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean, this could be the most critical issue of our lifetimes. Again, like we talk about it every week, um, but the implication of something that is super intelligent. Again, we joke, but it's like, who's to say it will keep us around?
Mhm.
AI
Maybe not.
needs specific things from humanity, and that's NVIDIA chips and, somebody to operate the power plant until it can figure that out. So it's just sort of
Yeah.
like, you know, who's to say? Um,
Scary
so
stuff. Will eventually be replaced, everybody. I mean, I think it's just a time to, yeah, experiment. Also, people should be learning new things and how they could use technology to be more productive themselves, right? Like, another thought that comes to mind would be like, let's say oh gosh, it's so hard thinking of a good example. Um, Maybe farm work. Like, right? This is a really bad example, but I was just watching Shark Tank's latest episode. And I have to say, there was a cool company on there called Good Egg. If you live on a farm and you want to clean your eggs, they have these little silicone little things, and they have an enzyme soap. That anyway, long story short, there's a trend towards growing your own food, growing your own, having eggs, chicken, and ducks, and it is definitely more. Yeah, it is. It is really definitely more common now to apparently there's 11 million households in the US that have chickens. And anyway, there's also automated chicken houses. I don't know if you've seen this, like, no joke.
oh
It's
yeah,
like it's having an
chicken coop with the automated doors. Yeah.
automated door. So look again. This is, and I think AI and stuff. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I again, you used to have farm help hands working and doing that stuff, cleaning it out, right? And like, now you can automate the process in your chicken farm in your little backyard with a couple of the chickens that you have, right? I mean, it's just crazy. So I think the more you think about it, it's like, it's just crazy, you know?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's
And
and
that's a
it's
job someone used to be doing. That's a job.
on a very small scale, right? I mean, I like to think. I mean, I don't know if it's relevant or not, right? But in terms of an industry transformation, whaling, catching
Yeah,
whales, right? We used to need whale fat for oil and lamps and other, and that in the early 1900s was replaced in a matter of several years, just because, in 2 years, the industry went from the largest in the world to zero because, well, petroleum and the light bulb. and it's like
Yeah.
we don't need whale oil anymore. So it's like sorry, canceled. There's, you know, so I guess this has been going on for many years. But as we've discussed before, AI is the very first thing that will automate the human mind in that way.
Yeah.
But interesting point about, self-sufficiency. I think that's, you know, I think there's a weird overlap there. There are a lot of doomsday preppers that are, very involved in tech. Um, but I think in another way too, right? They're so intimately involved, they are preparing for the worst, I guess. I guess I don't really do that, but I know some people are building bunkers and preparing, um, I don't think it will save you from AI, but have fun. It's just sort of like, you know, I think the best course of action is prevention and not preparing for a scenario uh, where you've already accepted that there is going to be an apocalypse, because I don't think, you know, even the best bunkers, you still need to go outside at some point. I mean,
Uh-huh.
unless I don't know,
I get what you're saying. No,
right? Like
absolutely.
you're preparing like the outcome has already been selected, right? So it's like maybe a little bit of optimism, but I also think it's prudent to work within the confines of what you have. Now, obviously, if it was an apocalypse outside, I would look into building a bunker pretty quickly because I can look outside and, but we still have trees. There's still, it's like everything's still okay. So we can plan like it's not, but we can also plan, you know, preventative, it's like we can prevent the apocalypse, right? We're still here, so it's like, why not focus on that? Anyway, so I think
No,
it's a
for
little defeatist in some ways, but my personal opinion on that one.
Mhm. No, there's craziness. Yeah. Well, any other yeah, it's been other than the AWS outage, the past few days over the weekend. I don't know what else other tech related things for the
Oh, I
week.
have a perfect 30-second.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, the Vision Pro now has an M5 chip and a new headband.
That's
That's it.
right. Oh wow.
That's it.
So if you
There's
bought a
no more news. Sorry, that's it.
oh
Well, the iPad and the MacBook got it too. But
wow.
initially very impressive. It's just I think it's especially funny for the Vision Pro because literally nothing else about the hardware has changed. We have a new headband, and as far as we can tell, on the exterior and interior, everything else is exactly the same. So,
Wow. Wow. That's so if
something to
you
think
bought
about.
so yeah, but if you bought a Vision Pro before this update, 6 months, a year ago, that's crazy. I mean, I guess it's good they're updating the Vision Pro, but should we be concerned that it was done so like in a sneaky fashion? I kind of feel like it was. Is it just me that thinks that?
I don't.
They
I don't
quietly
know.
did.
I mean,
Like you're absolutely
I
right, but you're following.
they quietly do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. This isn't the first time. Okay. I just think it's obvious they don't particularly care about the Vision Pro, right? It's a Halo device. No one's actually buying or using this thing. I don't, it was a paid beta test. Um, you know, uh, you know, so I actually have a demo scheduled for tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Oh,
Um,
really? Are you gonna buy
so
one or just go check it
a-
out?
ab- absolutely not. I don't need that.
Yeah.
Don't need it. Won't
Wow.
use it. I didn't like using my AirPods because it just felt, I mean, it's just like I like to, even I don't like using headphones because I don't like having something on for long periods of time unless I'm on a
Mhm.
plane. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think for me VR is not, I'm not looking to create a virtual world. I'm looking to augment my real world. I mean, I'm very into like technology, like, you know, I mean, like, this thermal camera, because it helps, it gives me X-ray vision. Like I can see things that I can see heat, and that's really cool to me. But I'm not really into, putting on a VR headset and I don't know, like not seeing the real world. I'd rather just augment what I can see, whether that be like night vision, thermal vision, super zoom, thinking getting some binoculars. I mean, just so you can like, I don't know,
Mhm.
look at a plane that's far away or something. I don't know.
I see it.
But
Yeah.
it's a, I'm not, I know you have a Quest and maybe you're more into that.
Well, but that's what I
At
was
least
just about
being
to
involved,
say.
um, but
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. There's other options out there that are more like, I don't wanna say it accessible, but it's just like you could buy 2 like, the Quest 3 is really good. For the price, it's really good. Apple's just overpriced and missing it, and I don't really know a world where that's gonna get people to buy it, and I know that's not the goal, obviously, but it just, like, doesn't make sense. Like, you could get your whole family, you could get 4 Quest 3s for, uh, $2,000, right? And you can't even get 1 Quest, or excuse me, 1 Apple Vision Pro for that price. It's still way more than $1,000 more than 2,000. So it's just crazy to me. Like, that is insane. They probably would have sold a lot of Apple Vision Pros if it was $1 to $2,000, but which is still obviously double to triple the price of the Quest 3. So I think there's other alternatives out there, and I wouldn't play Apple's game on a first generation product and drop that much. I really wouldn't. The Quest 3 is excellent. Don't let the price, or don't let people, oh, it's Meta, or oh, it's how is it good? No, it's actually really good. So, don't let anybody tell you it's not. It's still really good.
yeah, I mean, I
Wow.
wouldn't, yeah, I don't know what the Vision Pro is attempting to do. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know what. If someone has a great answer, please call in. I don't know, but
Yeah.
we may figure that. We may be around doing this podcast when Apple figures out, um, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. But hey, until next week, right?
I know. Well, great episode today. We'll be back every Tuesday. We're here talking tech of the week. Thanks for listening and hearing all about the AWS outage and some other news this week and exciting tech. Yeah, until next week.